So right now on CBSSports.com on the NFL page, the top 5 headlines are all draft related. Prisco's NFL draft grades, which we just talked about. Team grades for every round of the draft. 5 cut candidates following the draft. Winners and losers. In 2025 mock draft, Sanders, Hunter go 1 and 2. But we're not talking about 2025 yet. We still got to recap everything that's happened here in 2024. Back here with Brady Quinn and Pete Prisco. We got Ryan Wilson, Douzable. We're like 4 wide here. We got 2 in the box. We got a lot to go here.
It's a full squad.
Ryan, we're going to start with you on each of these here. So best overall draft, which team was that for you?
I got to take it to Western PA and represent our buddy B-Mac. I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers. A few years ago, Kenny Pickett was their pick, 20th overall, the only quarterback in that draft class. He has since moved on. They have their quarterback in Russ Wilson and Justin Fields. So what do they do with Arthur Smith as the new offensive coordinator? They get offensive line help in round 1, Troy Fautanu. They get offensive line help in round 2, Zach Frazier. Both guys have a chance to be starters right away. They get Peyton Wilson, one of the best athletes in this draft class at linebacker, who has an extensive injury history, but you get him at the end of round 3. You feel pretty good about that. And then Roman Wilson, only person they didn't draft, Tommy, was Ryan Wilson. But Roman Wilson's going to be in the slot. And Mason McCormick is a special bulldog talent. I know Lee and I have talked about him. And he'll have a chance to be a backup early, maybe work his way into a starting job down the road. But this team feels like it's ready to go day one, lean into the run, help Russ Wilson have success, and be competitive again. They're going to win more games than they lose and have a chance to make that playoff run.
The Washington Commanders had a great draft, top to bottom, and it starts with the quarterback. They got the best guy I think is going to be the best quarterback in this draft class, and Jaden Daniels. Johnny Newton was a steal. I know he had the foot injury, should have been a first-round pick. Mikey Sainristil is a darn good football player, will make a ton of plays. Sanat, the tight end, is a big guy who can get down the field. Coleman will have to develop into a left tackle. McCaffrey, I thought there were better options on the board when they picked Luke McCaffrey, but he's a guy who's getting better and better as he learns the position. I love what Adam Peters did his first year. Everything is new in Washington. New owner, new GM, new coach, new quarterback. They have to be excited. They knocked it out of the park in Adam Peters' first draft.
I think the LA Rams had a home run draft. And when you look at their draft, they have their starting defensive line under contract for the next 3 or 4 years. They took Jared Verse, who slid in the draft. And then they went and got his teammate, somebody he's used to working with, in Braden Fisk. Brady, a lot of people had this guy as a potential late first-round pick. Now you got Byron Young and Kobe Turner. Each one of their starters up front under contract for the next 3 or 4 years. Really love in the 5th round, they got Brendan Jackson, a guy from Washington State who is a gritty defensive player. And Cam Kitchens, a lot of people were down on him, Brady, because he ran a slower 40. But to me, he was one of the best half-field safeties, but has the flexibility to play in the box as well. So we know this Rams team isn't synonymous with having a first-round pick. They hit it out of the park with Jared Verse, and they are a great team at developing young talent. So I thought they had a home run draft.
I think Jordan Whittington, too, will be
great
productive within that offense, special teams. I know our guy, Chris Trapasso, wasn't high on that selection in particular.
Really?
But I think he'll fit in very well with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. I'm going to actually agree with Pete for once. I know we don't do that very often, but I think he's right. When you look at Washington top to bottom, he talked a lot about the quarterback. I think you look through the rest of the class, though, even some of those later picks, like the Luke McCaffrey pick, I don't have an issue with because I think they've already got their #1 wide receiver, and you've got Dotson, too, that can do a bunch of different things. So can Luke McCaffrey. So I think even though there might have been some other guys he liked better, I think he fits for what they're looking for at that particular position. But Jean-Baptiste, I think, can help on special teams, help out on depth on defense. You go through the rest of the class, even Dominique Hampton, I think, can fill in for special teams, if not more depth at the safety position there. So top to bottom, Ben Sanat, your favorite player.
You already know, man. Tied in #2, baby.
He's coming right in, and he's going to be a big part of this offense, too. So I loved what Washington did. I thought for Adam Peters, Dan Quinn's first draft, they knocked it out of the park.
So 2 out of the 4 guys are rolling with the Commanders when it comes to the best overall draft. Ryan, we'll start with you again. What about your favorite pick? Who comes to mind?
Jacqueline, I'm going to go to the 3rd round, and this wasn't a running back heavy at the top class, which I'm sure made Pete very happy. Last year we saw Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs go early in the draft. But round 3, the Cardinals got Trey Benson, the running back out of Florida State. Had a serious knee injury at Oregon, transferred to Florida State. He is dynamic between the tackles. He has the juice to get outside, can help in the pass game. And we're not talking enough. It's early. Maybe it's too early to talk about it. But we'll be talking about how good this Cardinals team is going to be. Monty Ossenford has done a fantastic job the last 2 drafts. Kyler Murray has to be ecstatic to get Marvin Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first round, and then you get an explosive playmaker out of the backfield to help you in Trey Benson. James Conner's in the last year of his deal. They do have DJ Dallas and Marlon Mack, but I think you get another element on that offense with Trey Benson and the versatility he brings.
I'm going with Peyton Wilson to the Steelers in the third round. What a steal that will end up being. And look, this guy has first-round talent. If he isn't injured, if he isn't a little older, if he didn't have the injury history, he would have been a first-round pick. The Steelers will get good play out of him for at least 4 or 5 years. And I'm talking about a guy who can run, cover, do so many different things. And if we remember last year, the Steelers linebacker position was a disaster. He will step in there and give them a guy who can cover the middle. He will be active when it comes to the run game. I love this pick by the Steelers. They've had great success over the years with linebackers. He will be another.
Yeah, Pete, I love that pick, Peyton Willis. Great value in the third round. Like you said, a lot of people had him as a late first, maybe second round pick, and maybe the top linebacker in this draft. I'm going to head to Detroit where the draft was at. Terrion Arnold falling all the way to, I believe, pick 24 to the Detroit Lions. Was a major need at corner, right? He's a guy that can play outside and inside. Let's not forget, Brady, there was another guy that fell in the draft to the Detroit Lions last year, Brian Branch, in the second round. Similar to Terrion Arnold, ran a slower 40, so maybe that's why he fell. But when you look at Aaron Glenn, they like to play a lot of man coverage. He's a guy that Terrion Arnold, you can put in the slot. You can put on the outside. You'll be able to move pieces around. Let's not also forget, they traded for Carlton Davis and brought in Meek Robinson as well. So that was a position of weakness on this team. Yeah. And not only did they get Terrion Arnold, they probably got my favorite player in the draft, Ennis Rakestraw, in the second round.
Is this supposed to be your favorite player?
No, this is favorite pick, not favorite player. If it was favorite player, I would have went Ennis Rakestraw, but favorite pick was Terrion Arnold. I think he's going to make an impact from day one for that Detroit Lions defense.
Okay, so you got favorite pick and favorite player in there.
Give him love.
I'm going to follow you then. I'm going to follow your lead. Because what I loved was the pick of Braden Fisk, you just talked about with the LA Rams. To be able to match him up then with Jared Verse, teammates who were so productive at Florida State together. Anyone who saw the phone call to those two talk when the pick was made, the emotion behind it, that tugged on my heart. And it made me feel like that is a group, that is a team that's going to have success. I think a lot of people were concerned about the void left behind with Aaron Donald retiring. I'm not as concerned anymore. You talked about the two other young talent that's already there. Yeah. These two guys adding to that mix, they have got some absolute dogs up front that are going to help dominate the NFC West. So I love the pick of both Jared Verse combined with Brandon Fisk, but I love the fact of how it all worked out for Brandon Fisk in the second round.
Welcome to the law firm of Verse and Fisk in the future there in Los Angeles. So we're continuing the NFL Draft Superlatives segment here, and now, Ryan, we're talking about good player but bad fit.
Verse and Fisk, personal injury lawyer, Tommy, so you missed that one. That was a layup. But in terms of good player, bad fit, T'Vondre Sweat going to the Titans with the 6th pick in the second round. He was the 4th defensive tackle off the board, so I understand there was a need there. But a couple things. Number one, he's 360 pounds. Is he a 3-down player? Probably not. Number two, he had the off-field issues a few weeks ago with the DUI, and that just makes you question his judgment. Number three, a few years ago, they drafted Isaiah Wilson in the first round. He never worked out because of off-field issues. The tackle out of Georgia. Different regime in terms of the general manager and head coach, but still something that has to be in the back of your mind. The flip side of that is this. We saw how good T'Vondre Sweat was next to Byron Murphy. Let's put him next to Jeffrey Simmons and see how that works out. So I understand the thinking, but I just wonder if they could have gone in another direction. Braden Fisk was still on the board. Different type player, but a little more explosive on the inside. They could have gone with Cooper DeJean. They circled back and got a cornerback later, or even an A.D. Mitchell. They got a wide receiver later in the draft, but he was still on the board when they took Sweat.
Yeah, he's got to get down to 340 pounds. Somebody told me the other day he was 390 pounds. That's immensely big for a defensive tackle. My guy, when you look at it, is who's a really good player, and maybe even a great player, but doesn't fit? Brock Bowers to the Raiders. I don't get it. You have Michael Mayer. At the end of last season, Michael Mayer was a dominant tight end for the Raiders. He has all the tools to become a #1 tight end. This is a luxury pick. Yes, Bowers is a good player and might even be a really good player. But why, if you're the Raiders, do you use a pick on a tight end when you have a guy who last year looked like he was going to be that guy? Made no sense to me. Didn't like the fit at all.
Yeah, Pete, I think that was a head-scratcher for a lot of people because of what you said. Michael Mayer played really well down the stretch. I'm going to go to a guy that went to Brady School. number 5 pick overall in offensive tackle, Joe Alt. Now, this isn't about the player, Brady.
Right.
Heck of a player. But going to the Chargers where they already have a premier left tackle in Rashawn Slater. Brady, you know this. You play on the offensive side. I've talked to a few offensive linemen. They say when you make that transition from left to right tackle, it's like doing everything backwards. So we saw Penei Sewell really struggle his rookie year. Now it ended up working out for him in the future. But for his rookie season, Penei Sewell really struggled making the transition from left to right tackle. I can see Joe Alt having that transition, having that issue as well, making the transition because he's predominantly played left tackle. So that's not an easy transition to make. So I love the player Joe Alt. I just don't like the fit with the Chargers.
Yeah, it will be an interesting transition for him. I personally, just from knowing him, I don't think he'll have any issue transitioning. I think he'll be able to fit the mold quite well. One player that I kind of found a little bit surprised, he got taken kind of more mid-late round, was Devin Leary, quarterback out of Kentucky, going to the Baltimore Ravens. You look at Lamar Jackson, Josh Johnson, Malik Cunningham are currently on the roster. Leary doesn't bring the same type of athleticism that I think you'd like to have more quarterback running game. Not saying that he can't run a Todd Monken offense, but I think when you're looking at if Lamar Jackson was to go down, how do you keep everything kind of the same? You've got guys with Josh Johnson and Malik Cunningham with similar abilities. Not quite the same with Devin Leary. So a little bit surprising. I like the player. I liked what he showcased at times during his college career from NC State to Kentucky, but just odd fit at the quarterback spot there, given what they already have on the roster.
All right, in our final NFL Draft Superlative, we are talking about a late-round steal. Ryan, who comes to mind for you?
Jacqueline, I'm going to round 7, where Jaheim Bell was still on the board. The New England Patriots grabbed the Florida State tight end. Transfer from South Carolina, didn't have quite the productive season I was hoping he would have in 2023. He reminds me a little bit of Chig Okonkwo when he's at his best, who plays for the Titans now, but we didn't see that with enough consistency. That's in part why he fell. The production wasn't quite there. Went to the Senior Bowl and held his own, but I think they have some tight ends there. They have Hunter Henry, of course, but you get a move tight end with a little athleticism down the field, and maybe that helps Drake May, if not this year, perhaps next year when Drake gets on the field.
I'm going to go with Troy edge rusher Javon Solomon, who was on my better than team. The Buffalo Bills took him in the 5th round. What a great situation for a young, smallish pass rusher to learn behind Von Miller. I mean, this is fantastic. It's a great job by the Bills identifying him. He led the all colleges with 16 sacks last year. He's one of those guys, when you look at him, he might not look like a really special edge player. You pop on the tape, boy, he explodes. Great situation for him. I love that pick.
Yeah, Pete, I'm going to go with another edge rusher as well who went to a smaller school at Colorado State. Mo Kamara in the 5th round to the Miami Dolphins. And, Pete, I know you really love Chop Robinson, but do not be surprised if Mo Kamara, especially on passing downs, sees the field a little bit more than Chop Robinson. Chop Robinson has a higher upside, right, but he needs some development in regards to using his hands. Mo Kamara is going to come in ready to rush on 3rd down. Super productive, 21.5 sacks the last 2 seasons. That Colorado game, he literally took over that game. I like him as a late-round steal in this draft.
It's hard for me to admit this, but 7th-round pick, Taj Washington out of SC. I think there's a lot of value there for the Miami Dolphins. You know, a lot of attention is going to be to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, some of the pieces on there. Then he kind of fits in this smaller player, but extremely explosive, highly productive. You know, in Mike McDaniel's offense, they're going to find a role for him, and it's just more speed to an offense that already has plenty of it. So, ton of value there in the 7th round for a wide receiver that I think can fit in a bunch of different ways.
All right, that was fun. Brady, Lige, Pete, Ryan, Jacqueline, everybody, thank you for that. I'm sure that'll be posted on YouTube that you can check out. Also check out, by the way, with the first pick, Ryan Wilson, Rick Spielman. Scan that QR code. They're talking about the teams who drafted they love the most and some others that they had questions about.